You need both, because if the scenario of a transition towards a green economy means that specific sectors of the industry will grow and others will degrow, because not all sectors of an economy can remain thriving when you want to achieve lower environmental costs associated with production and consumption. So it means that firms have to redefine their core business in order to see, they have to understand the environmental cost associated with their core business and see whether how much they have to change it in order to remain existent. So it means also that when you have a dynamic, innovative sector in your economy which benefits from this change, then it makes your task as policymaker easier, obviously, because you can rely on this part of the private sector. You can show that it's not that all environmental policies are automatically negative for the economy. So that is the important step to go, and I think we have walked that, and the energy transition shows that in Germany. Now, this is not the same in all areas where you need environmental change, and this is definitely not the case in the area of agriculture. That's why I mentioned it. There, the picture is much more mixed. And so I think that the role of public policies is extremely important in showing the private sector clearly and strongly where the development should go to. So that's why I said you need a long-term perspective for moving away from this past dependency on energy and input-intensive consumption and production patterns where you don't care what the environmental footprint is. And I think that this is something where you can't wait for the market to react to scarcities which naturally appear. Then the window of opportunity is definitely closed. And I think that this is also important for African economies. So how on which type of technology do you base the emerging energy systems? I think these questions are important, so that you how long has it taken for Nigeria to really think of gas flaring not only as an opportunity? I mean, of the change of this gas flaring as an opportunity and not only as a onerous task. Yeah. So, and I think this is where it is important to realize when a debate which focuses only on the cost of change, which interests are transporting this debate actually, and how are costs framed, and what's on the other side of the balance.
Very briefly, I think where business has a big possibility to move and to shift things is the supply chain. And fortunately, this is becoming a debate more and more, so that companies who think that this is important taking much more efforts in making sure that the supply chain in their production is respected not only in the country where they have the seat of the company, but abroad. And I think this will be more and more a factor also in the discussion what consumers will prefer to buy. If you think of tablet computers, if you think of other electronic devices, or even of normal articles as shoes or whatever it is in the textile industry, if companies move on this, and they start to move on this, then there are examples in many countries being part of such production chains.
I would like to address one thing, and that has to do with capacity building and learning, and particularly with policy learning. If we describe green economy as a large-scale, holistic transition process, this cannot be done in a very short period of time, and we will face ups and downs and constraints. So I think learning is very important, and in order to learn, you have to scale it up. You have to give it visibility. Chia, I have one question, because you pointed to under this umbrella of the 5-year plan, also to this implementation of the different layers that you have created in China. Particularly with reference to low-carbon cities and pilot provinces. What kind of learning mechanism or scaling up mechanism is part of this long-term green economy perspective?
I'll be more than happy to address that question, but before I do that, can I just respond a little bit to the supply chain issue, which I find fascinating. I mean, so just highlighted a very key element in this discourse on green economy, which is, with this globalized world, and it's really, really hard for just a few countries, a few technologically, economically advanced country to achieve and realize the green economy, without considering the whole world. The supply chain is an issue that highlighted, you have consumers will consider their footprints in other places. And also, when other manufactured products, like the solar panels, exported from China to Europe, right? You can't have a green economy by importing the solar panels if the solar panels are manufactured in a non-green way. So I think that is a very, very, very important issue. Also, I think a lot of people are talking about footprint versus handprints. So that means as consumers and also as the importing countries, I think a very key issue there is you cannot just think about reduce your own footprint. You really need to think about to enlarge your own handprint, which is to do a lot of important, useful, helping things, helping hands there. I think that's very, very important issue at this moment when we're reflecting, what has happened in the last 20 years after Rio, because there are lots of the undelivered commitments there that really need to be addressed. Anyway, so I think that's what I mean. For global agenda, it's really, there are a lot need to be talked about. But back to that question on policy learning, in China domestically, the Chinese policy process is interesting. So, it's almost always rely on the piloting, the experiment at the local levels, especially when you look at the last 3 decades. A lot of the good policies have really learned from from bottom, from what's happening in the local governments. As I mentioned, that a pilot program on low carbon development in 5 provinces and 8 cities, and that was enacted in August 2010. It's been going on for almost 2 years now, and that program is being considered to expand to include more cities and more provinces, simply because a lot more cities and provinces that they want to be part of that particular program. I have to point out, so far there has been no financial support or other kind of preferential policies from the central government to that. It is very much coming from the local government, very enthusiastic about that. And we have seen some interesting development from that. For instance, these pilot cities and pilot provinces, they universally have been trying very hard to define what does it mean for low carbon development there. And they are also trying very hard to come up with some very interesting design of the cities, low carbon design of the cities, including all these factors: industry, energy, buildings, transport, agriculture, and forestry. So they have been doing that. And some of the places, they are also part of this carbon trade, the carbon trade pilots. Seven cities or provinces are also implementing on that. So we have not really seen any trading yet, but they have been designing this kind of policy, this kind of programs, and trying to see whether or not it would work over there. And there are, within these kind of locally initiated bottom-up programs, and we have seen that these localities not only work on their own, they're trying to get help from the research institutions in China and outside China. They have been trying hard to come up with their own schemes of financing their projects. So I see that is interesting development. But I think just in the issue of green economy and the low carbon economy, whatever we call it, I think this is very different than other things. Traditionally we have to rely on this bottom-up policy learning. I think it's a really important element there is this top-level commitment. I see China is among one of the few countries where we can see the political consensus, a national consensus on green economy has been built. And I also see this national level, the top-down design, very concrete and specific plans need to be there. And I also see these overall mechanisms of encouraging the implementation mechanism, encouraging the green economy has to be there. You can't just simply rely on this bottom-up approaches. So I see this has been going, has to be bi-directional, bottom-up plus the top-down approach.